What's good? It's Woog. Kamaru Usman stops Gilbert Burns in the third round in a fight where Kamaru Usman was hurt pretty badly in the first round. Gilbert Burns was letting his hands go. He seemed to have a hand speed advantage. Even though Usman had a 5-inch reach advantage, Burns seemed to have pretty long arms proportionally to his body as well. He was shooting that sneaky uppercut that just comes really fast, and it's almost like you wonder how his shoulder is able to let an uppercut go with that type of range coverage, speed. And so he was throwing punches like around Usman's guard, and Usman was reacting differently to these punches. I mean, we saw Usman standing there for about 4+ rounds with Colby Covington. Colby Covington, I believe, is a better boxer than Gilbert Burns, but doesn't have the outright power of Gilbert Burns. But we saw Usman, absorb and handle those punches pretty well, enough to outlast Colby ultimately. And then we saw him take on a very short notice Jorge Masvidal, which I don't think that we should assume that was Masvidal's best, but it was a fraction of Jorge Masvidal, who caught him a few times early in the fight when he was still fresh. And Usman, had to tie up and had to burn the clock and do the things that he needed to do in that fight to win it, because the kickboxing seemed to favor Masvidal, especially with, again, the little bit of preparation that he had for that specific opponent. But this was a different story, because Usman got hit and actually reacted as if he was hurt, where it was very apparent, this might be a stoppage. Are we about to see a new champion? That's what a lot of us were thinking, seeing Usman react to Gilbert Burns' speed that early in the fight in that way. Even in the second round, there were a couple times where Usman got caught, but Usman slowly turned the fight around, was able to tag Burns a couple times and kind of get him on his back to where he didn't take the bait and engage the, second-degree black belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialist with whom he's been training with for the past few years. So Usman knows how dangerous Burns is on the ground, decides to, no, let's keep this on the feet. And so he did the thing where he just kind of kick at his legs as Burns is just kind of like chilling on the ground, doing the up kick, maybe catching I'm surprised that he didn't do more to catch Usman's knee, by the way. Because, that's that tricky situation where you've got one fighter standing, at the foot of the bed, basically, of the other opponent who's on his back. And there are a lot of opportunities, it would seem, that, to do that, leg kick that looks like it could severely damage a knee if it catches it in the right way. Gilbert Burns did a little bit of that. He did a little bit of the bicycle kicking where the heel kind of comes down, where if your head or leg are in the wrong place at the wrong time, it could come down and chop at it. But I didn't see him shooting the heel out to try to catch Usman's knee for as much standing at the foot of the bed as Usman was doing at the time. But they go back to their feet, and then Usman starts unleashing this, I'm not going to say Larry Holmes-like jab. It wasn't that good of a jab, but it was a damn good jab. And it was a jab that, to Luke Thomas's credit, he had mentioned that you don't really see utilized in MMA in the way that he used it here, in terms of proper distance control, where you're pumping a jab, an intelligent jab, and making it work almost like it was a power punch. It was technically a jab, but you could also consider this jab a power punch in the way that it was weaponized here, to the point where the jab itself was knocking Burns to the canvas. Not the power punch following the jab, not the left hook and the straight right. No, this was a jab that was putting Burns on his butt multiple times. And when it wasn't, it was still getting that, oh man, reaction from Burns, to where Burns' initial hand speed, flashy power punches that were catching Usman were catching him far less, and he was paying for, closing in on the real estate a lot more down the stretch, to where he was just, kind of throwing a little bit more wildly, and eventually got stopped. He's on the ground with another power jab, and Usman slowly finishes him with a few hammer fists. And this is another thing. When Usman was standing at the foot of the bed, if you will, he was able to actually punch over that because he had that reach and connect cleanly on Gilbert Burns' chin, to where Gilbert Burns started to kind of go out with some of those long-range shots where usually the guy standing at the foot of the bed is only kicking at the guy's like butt and thigh and stuff like that, or punching down to the belly area, which Usman was also doing, and you see it used effectively in other fights. But he was able to actually reach over the body area and to actually hammer down with an intelligent and well-balanced power punch. So that really, you know, kind of hastens up your, hey, I got to get out of this situation because I can't just comfortably coast here, you know, and rest while threatening those knee kicks. So Usman digs deep and eventually stops Gilbert Burns, retains his title. This is his third defense. He had won it off Woodley a couple years ago, then defended it in that great fight against Colby Covington. Colby really pushed him. That was his war thus far, even though he was in trouble in this one as well. But that Colby fight, classic. And it was also pretty uncharacteristic that you would have two bona fide wrestlers just duking it out the whole time. Yeah, Usman versus Colby, that is kind of its own thing. But then his second defense was supposed to be against Gilbert Burns, who had to pull out due to COVID, enter late replacement, last minute replacement, like within the week of the fight replacement, Jorge Masvidal, who loses via decision, kind of gassed out by the second, third round, and he became less and less. It became clear he had a striker's chance at catching Usman with some, with some elbow, with some early round damage. That was the thing. In this fight between Usman and Masvidal, Masvidal had to get his work in within the first minute of the round, because that's when you're the freshest. Even if you're coming out for like the third or fourth round, you are usually more fresh in the first minute of the third, fourth, and even fifth round than you are like the fourth and fifth minute of even the second round in a lot of cases, you know? So Masvidal was unable to close the deal against, Usman, ended up getting grinded out to like a 4 rounds to 1 type of decision, win or loss. Loss in the case of Masvidal. But now Usman is sitting 3 defenses in, and it's like, where does the 170-pound division go from here, right? He's now beaten RDA, who's now back down to 155, Demian Maia. He beat Leon Edwards, who's currently top 4 ranked right now. He beat him early in his UFC career, which he is still undefeated in the UFC with this like string of, 13, 14 wins since he's entered the UFC without a loss. That's pretty incredible. But he's now beaten RDA, Maia, Leon Edwards, super highly ranked again, Tyron Woodley, former champ, who defended it, 4 or 5 times himself before Usman took the title from him, Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, and now Gilbert Burns. But I would asterisk the Jorge Masvidal win. That is one that should probably be run back if Jorge Masvidal even wants that fight. Like, Jorge is now in his mid-30s. He's been and done it all. I'm super glad that he's actually getting his roses in this late stage of his career, because he's almost had a like an Alistair Overeem like career where you span so many different organizations, so many different opponents, different weight classes. Masvidal has done it all except for become UFC champ. So Usman stands in the way of that right now, but Masvidal almost appears to be more so in the mode of super fight. It looks like he's just, he's really not as active. And you wouldn't expect a 35, 36, 37-year-old to be as active as you were at 28, 29, 32, 33, But he's really picking his fights very, very wisely now, financially. That BMF, that was lightning in a bottle between him and Nate Diaz, who, hasn't been seriously ranked at 155 or 170 in the past, few years. He's been doing his own version of super fight mode. But Usman has been doing the 2 fights a year thing, not missing his beat. He is definitely still in his prime, and he's, a multiple successful title defense champion now. And it's like, does he fight Jorge? Because that would be another major notch now that you've beaten Jorge twice and actually gave him a proper training camp. You've got Colby Covington, who it looks like they might match him up with Jorge Masvidal or with Leon Edwards, who just had to pull out. No, Khamzat Chimaev pulled out in like the third or fourth time they've tried to make Edwards versus Chimaev, rankings considered. They've been trying to put that together for a while, and Leon Edwards hasn't fought since he beat, RDA, I think was his last fight. He was supposed to get that first crack at Tyron Woodley, after Tyron lost the title. They were supposed to fight. COVID, made that a impossibility at the time. So since then, Woodley's lost to Gilbert Burns and Colby Covington. So it's just been an unfortunate run for him. He turned down a Wonder Boy fight for some reason. I thought that was actually like, yo, you too good for Wonder Boy? Like, come on, man. Stephen Thompson has been a high contender, two-time title contender, two close fights versus the champ Tyron Woodley. The first of those two fights I thought was a classic. People forget about that because of how uneventful the rematch was. But Woodley versus Wonderboy 1, go rewatch that one. And Wonderboy's beaten like Johnny Hendricks, Rory McDonald, some like real deal guys, over the years. And he's now making his final push. So that's another guy to consider for a potential future, title defense for Usman. I also wouldn't mind seeing a Usman versus Colby Covington rematch. And obviously, if Khamzat Chimaev heals, I hope and pray that he does. He's having a tough go with COVID. But if he could get things on track and fulfill some of the potential that he was showing throughout the quarantine season when he was fighting just multiple times, just whooping ass and looking dangerous, he could be a future opponent for Usman. But it's like, and the thing is, people, will then ask the question, well, how long could Usman keep doing this? Well, Usman's now, like 33 years old? I don't look at this as being like a 5-year plan. I don't think he could hold on to it for 5. That's asking a lot. That's a lot of title defenses against elite guys. You've got to maintain that intense focus to be the champ and then to remain the champ because, all comers are looking at you like you're the Los Angeles Lakers, It's a lot of weight. You heard Anderson Silva in the post-fight interview when he finally lost the title against Chris Weidman in their first fight. Being the champ is tiring. One of these days, Valentina Shevchenko is going to lose that title. Amanda Nunes is going to lose that title. It's a lot that comes with it. So, at 33, I'm looking at it more like, can Usman remain champ for another 2 years? Say, 3 more defenses? That's where I'd put the over-under. Maybe 2-3 defenses. If I had to handicap how much longer Usman is going to be champ, I'd say, yeah, about maybe 2 to 3 defenses. But that's a tough gig, man. Each of these fights just chip away at you physically, mentally. Like, this sport breaks people down. But Usman still has the crown, and it doesn't look like his very next opponent's going to be the guy to do it because he's just getting better. Like, this guy had very marginal boxing skills when he was even like running up the rankings. He had marginal boxing skills. It was evident that he was as strong as a fucking ox and had a deep wrestling pedigree. NCAA collegiate wrestling is usually the way to go if you're from the States and trying to make it in MMA. That's like the proven, tried and true method. Now you're starting to see some great kickboxers, like Israel Adesanya really just, hold it down at the, championship level. Anderson Silva was obviously a Muay Thai specialist and did some boxing, but wrestling background is the one that you really want to have. If you just want to have that foundational piece that you could then build different skills around. If Yoel Romero just happened to have some hammers for fists and a body like a X-Men action figure. And I'm talking about the X-Men villains, not the good guys. I'm talking about one of those yoked up villains. But Yoel Romero is an Olympic level wrestler. So I don't know, with this skill set and the way that he's constantly evolving, Usman is, especially since he's been working with Trevor Whitman. I don't see his next defense as being the guy that beats him, whether it's Jorge Masvidal with a full training camp. Look, I think that he's a bad matchup for Jorge. The guys who beat Jorge seem to just keep on, just occupying his time and his oxygen and his clock, keeping his back against the ropes, just taking him down, back up, and then back down and kind of making it a boring fight. Demian Maia beat Jorge Masvidal like 3 years ago. It wasn't that long ago when, kind of slowed down the fight type of wrestler, grappler, Brazilian jiu-jitsu specialist. Give Jorge a bad time. It just so happens that he caught Ben Askren in the first couple seconds of their fight with a flying knee that just made it look like he just murks people. He does. I think Jorge Masvidal has some of the best boxing, kickboxing skills in the UFC, pound for pound. But a strong wrestler who's constantly evolving as a striker like Usman is just a bad matchup. Now, I don't think Usman should let this boxing evolution go to his head to the point where he wants to make that his primary method of attack against or strategy against Masvidal. That would be a bad idea. Keep in mind, Gilbert Burns hurt him bad in the first round. Usman has clearly developed a power jab and some other punches. Like, he broke Colby Covington's jaw. I mean, the dude can crack and he can take a punch and he's got a ton of heart. But don't make kickboxing Jorge Masvidal the thing that you want to do for 3 minutes, 4 minutes of the first round or 3 minutes of the second round. No, you want to stick to your skill set and win the fight first and foremost. But yeah, I just wanted to, weigh in and kind of give my instant feelings on what I witnessed a couple nights ago in Usman versus Gilbert Burns, because I wasn't looking at it as a 50-50 fight, but I thought that there were some interesting things. I mean, aside from their whole history training together, but I thought that there were some interesting matchup issues that Gilbert Burns' skill set would bring to the table, and they did. And Usman still passed the test, man, with an ever-evolving skill set. So let's see what the future holds, but I hope they get Usman and Jorge, two together. I would have liked to have seen Jorge fight somebody in the interim. Again, in boxing, Canelo Alvarez is doing all the heavy lifting, while the people in his weight class are basically Canelo watching and Canelo wishing. Except Canelo is like the number one money fighter, right? In this case, it's the case where the challenger Jorge brings more views and brings more clicks and attention, engagements to the table than Usman because of his character. And I don't mean character in terms of integrity. I mean your persona, your public persona, and how that's crossed over to the public. I mean, Masvidal had to catch lightning in the bottle at the right times then to set up the BMF thing and is having this late surge of popularity in his career. I mean, he's been around forever, but he's just become this popular phenomenon. So he's really milking that right now. So he hasn't set up a fight since his first go at Usman on short notice. So I hope they get that together. Let me know your thoughts on the division on Saturday's fight. Leave your comments in the comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in, guys.